I'm standing in my kitchen at 3 a.m. watching security footage of my son's bedroom on my phone. My hands won't stop shaking. The timestamp reads 12:47 a.m., and there's someone in his room, someone wearing his dead father's old college jacket, the same jacket I donated to Goodwill 4 years ago, 2 weeks after the funeral. The figure on the screen moves closer to my son's bed, and I can't breathe. I can't think. All I can do is watch as this person, this intruder wearing my dead husband's clothes, leans over my sleeping 8-year-old boy. My name is Vera Caldwell, and 3 days ago, my world turned upside down when my son, Dustin, came home from school with a black eye. Not just any black eye, but the kind that makes other parents look at you sideways at pickup, wondering what really goes on behind closed doors. The purple bruising spread from his eye socket down to his cheekbone, angry and swollen. "Dad did it," he told me, his voice small and broken. "Dad was angry with me." Those 3 words made my blood freeze. Roland, my husband and Dustin's father, died in a car accident 4 years ago. I was the one who identified his body. I was the one who picked out his burial suit. I was the one who held Dustin as he cried at the funeral, too young at 4 years old to understand why Daddy wasn't ever coming home again. The police came to our house that night. Officer Brennan looked at me with barely concealed skepticism while his partner, Officer Diaz, knelt down to Dustin's level, speaking in that fake, gentle voice adults use when they think children are lying. "Son, you need to tell us the truth. Who really hurt you? Was it someone at school? Maybe you got in a fight and you're scared of getting in trouble?" "My dad hurt me," Dustin insisted, tears streaming down his face. "He comes to my room at night. He says I'm not being good enough. He says he'll take me away if I tell anyone." Officer Diaz stood up, exchanged a look with his partner, and pulled me into the hallway. "Mrs. Caldwell, has your son been in therapy? Children sometimes create elaborate fantasies to cope with trauma. Is there perhaps a boyfriend, a relative, someone else who might have access to your son?" "There's no one else," I said, my frustration rising with each word. "It's just me and Dustin. Someone hurt my child, and you're standing here suggesting he's making it up?" "We're not saying nothing happened," Officer Brennan said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But without a credible suspect or evidence, there's not much we can do. Kids his age, they lie sometimes. They get confused. Maybe he had a nightmare about his father and got the black eye somewhere else." They left me with a case number and patronizing smiles. They left me with a traumatized child who woke up 3 times that night screaming. They left me alone to figure out who was hurting my baby, so I did what any mother would do. I bought a hidden camera. The man at the electronics store helped me pick out a motion-activated model that would send alerts straight to my phone. I installed it myself, hiding it between Dustin's Captain America action figures on his bookshelf, the lens aimed directly at his bed and window. For 2 nights, nothing happened. I started to wonder if maybe the police were right, if maybe Dustin was confused, traumatized, mixing up dreams with reality. Then tonight, at 12:47 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. Now I'm watching this footage, and my whole body has gone cold. The window I locked and checked twice before bed is sliding open. The person climbing through moves with practiced ease, like they've done this before, many times before. They're wearing Roland's Boston University jacket, the one with the coffee stain on the left sleeve from when he spilled his morning cup rushing to class senior year. The one I held onto for exactly 2 weeks after the funeral before donating it because keeping his clothes made the house feel haunted. The figure steps into the pale green glow of Dustin's dinosaur nightlight, and for one insane moment, my heart stops because the build is right. The height is right. The way they move reminds me so much of Roland that my grief-stricken brain wants to believe in ghosts. But ghosts don't leave bruises. Ghosts don't make children cry real tears. Whatever is in my son's room right now is very much alive, very much real, and very much dangerous. And I'm about to find out exactly who's been terrorizing my child while wearing my dead husband's face like a mask. Life as a single mother wasn't part of my plan, but plans have a way of crumbling when your husband dies at 31. 4 years have passed since that phone call, since the police officer's voice turned my legs to water, since I had to explain to a 4-year-old that Daddy's car got hurt and Daddy couldn't come back. 4 years of rebuilding, of learning to be both parents, of finding a new normal in the aftermath of loss. Dustin and I live in a small 2-story house in Tucson now. Nothing fancy, but it's ours. We moved here from Phoenix 6 months after Roland died because I couldn't stand driving past the intersection where it happened. My mother, Diane, lives 10 minutes away, close enough to help with Dustin when I work night shifts at the pediatric ward, but far enough that we maintain our independence. Our morning routine has become sacred. I wake at 6, brew coffee strong enough to fuel a rocket, and by 6:30, Dustin's at the kitchen table with his sketchbook. He draws while I make breakfast, usually scrambled eggs and toast, though Saturdays are special with chocolate chip pancakes. The kid inherited Roland's artistic talent, but thankfully not his temper. Where Roland would tear up canvases that didn't meet his standards, Dustin just turns the page and starts fresh. "Mom, look," Dustin said just last week, showing me a drawing of a dragon protecting a small house. "That's us. You're the dragon." "Why? Am I the dragon?" I asked, ruffling his dark hair that curls exactly like his father's did. "Because dragons protect their treasure, and I'm your treasure. That's what Grandma Diane says." My mother had been a godsend through everything. She picked Dustin up from school when my shifts ran long, taught him to bake cookies, and never once suggested I should start dating again like my friends did. My brother Nolan helped too, driving down from Flagstaff every other weekend to take Dustin to baseball games or the Desert Museum. He'd become the male figure Dustin needed, teaching him to throw a curveball and change a tire, things Roland would have done. "Your dad would be proud of you," Nolan told Dustin after his first Little League game last spring. "You've got his determination." My father Eugene retired from construction last year and immediately started projects in our garage. Every Thursday afternoon, he'd pick Dustin up and they'd build birdhouses or pinewood derby cars, sawdust in their hair and matching grins on their faces. The garage became their domain, tools hung on pegboards exactly how Eugene liked them. Dustin's safety goggles still too big for his face, but worn with pride. The neighborhood embraced us from day one. The Hernandez family next door had twins Dustin's age, Carlos and Sofia, who treated our backyard like an extension of theirs. Mrs. Chen across the street brought soup whenever I looked tired. Mr. Patterson, a widower 3 houses down, kept an eye on things when I worked nights, his porch light always on like a beacon. I'd found my rhythm at work, too. The pediatric ward at Tucson Medical Center was demanding but fulfilling. My colleagues knew my story but didn't pity me, which I appreciated. Dr. Ramirez, the department head, had been flexible with scheduling, understanding that single parents juggled different responsibilities. "You're one of our best nurses, Vera," she told me during my last review. "The kids respond to you because you treat them like people, not just patients." I'd learned that from Dustin, from watching him face his father's death with more courage than most adults could muster. He still had Roland's picture on his nightstand, still talked to it sometimes when he thought I wasn't listening. "Hi, Dad," I heard him say one evening. "I made the honor roll again. Mom says you were really good at math, too. I wish you could help me with fractions." Those moments broke my heart and healed it simultaneously. Grief, I'd learned, wasn't something you got over, but something you grew around, like a tree growing around a fence until the metal became part of the wood. Our house had become a haven. Dustin's room was his sanctuary, walls covered in his artwork and glow-in-the-dark stars Roland had put up when Dustin was 2. The stars still glowed faintly at night, a reminder of bedtimes when we were still a family of 3. Everything was finally working. We had support, stability, love. Dustin was, thriving in school, making friends, discovering who he was, separate from his father's death. I'd even stopped jumping when the phone rang at odd hours, no longer expecting tragedy. We were healing. We were happy. Then came that Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. The call came at 2:15 p.m. while I was reviewing patient charts in the break room. The school's number flashed on my screen, and my stomach dropped the way it does when your child's school calls during the day. Nothing good ever comes from those calls. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is Principal Wakefield. Dustin's been injured. We need you to come immediately." I don't remember driving to the school. One moment I was grabbing my keys, the next I was bursting through the office doors. The secretary pointed me toward the nurse's station without a word, her face full of the kind of sympathy that made my chest tight. Dustin sat on the examination table, an ice pack pressed to his face. When he lowered it, I gasped. His right eye was swollen completely shut, purple and black bruising spreading across his cheekbone like spilled ink. His upper lip was split, dried blood crusted at the corner. "Baby, what happened?" I pulled him against me, feeling him shake. "Dad did it," he whispered into my shoulder. Dad was angry because I told Carlos about his visits. The room went silent. Principal Wakefield, the nurse, and the school counselor, Mr. Bryant, all stared at me. I felt the weight of their judgment, their concern, their confusion. "Dustin, honey, Daddy died 4 years ago. Remember? Someone else hurt you. Who was it really?" He pulled back, his one good eye meeting mine with absolute certainty. "It was Dad. He comes through my window at night. He says if I'm not good, if I tell anyone, he'll take me away like he was taken away. But I told Carlos because I was scared, and Dad found out." Principal Wakefield cleared her throat. "Mrs. Caldwell, perhaps we should speak privately." In her office, she chose her words carefully. "Has Dustin been seeing a therapist? Sometimes children process trauma in unexpected ways. These delusions about his father could be a cry for help." "Someone physically assaulted my 8-year-old son," I said, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Look at his face. That's not a delusion. That's battery." "Of course. Which is why we've called the police. They're on their way. But Dustin's insistence about his father is concerning in a different way." The police arrived within the hour. Officer Brennan, a man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, took photos while his partner, Officer Diaz, questioned Dustin. They went through the routine questions, their skepticism growing with each answer. "Son, you need to tell us the truth now. This is serious. Who really hurt you?" "My dad did it," Dustin insisted, tears rolling down his bruised face. "He comes at night. He stands by my bed. He smells wrong, like dirt and something sour. His voice is different, angry. He grabbed my face hard and said I was weak, that I was disappointing him." Officer Diaz pulled me into the hallway. "Ma'am, does anyone else have access to your home? A boyfriend, family member, babysitter?" "No one. My mother watches him sometimes, but at her house. My brother visits every other weekend. My father comes for woodworking projects, but no one has keys except me." "What about break-ins, damaged locks, open windows?" "Nothing. I check everything before bed. I always have since Roland died." Officer Brennan joined us, notebook in hand. "Mrs. Caldwell, kids sometimes lie about who hurt them, especially if they're scared of getting someone in trouble. Maybe a friend, a bully, someone threatened him. My son isn't lying. He's traumatized. Someone is hurting him. Look, without evidence or a credible suspect, our hands are tied. A deceased father isn't someone we can investigate. Document any injuries, keep your doors locked, and maybe consider getting him psychological help." They left me with a case number and hollow assurances. That night, I deadbolted every window, checked every door twice, and dragged my pillow and blanket into Dustin's room. I slept on his floor, waking every time the house creaked. "Mommy?" Dustin whispered at 3 a.m. "Are you still there?" "I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." "He doesn't come when you're here. He only comes when I'm alone." The next morning, my mother arrived with groceries and concern. "Vera, honey, you look exhausted." I told her everything. She listened, made coffee, then chose her words carefully. Maybe the counselor has a point. Trauma manifests strangely sometimes. Remember when Uncle Paul died and Cousin Amy insisted she saw him at the grocery store for months? "Mom, someone gave him a black eye. Someone real. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but Roland visiting him, that's concerning differently." Even Nolan seemed doubtful when I called him that evening. "Someone's definitely hurting him, V. But the dad story? That sounds like a scared kid not wanting to rat out whoever's really doing this." 3 days passed with no answers. Dustin refused to go to school, clinging to me whenever I tried to leave the room. I called in sick to work, something I'd only done twice in 4 years. Dr. Ramirez was understanding, but I knew I couldn't keep this up indefinitely. Every night, Dustin woke screaming about his father coming for him. Every morning, I checked his body for new bruises, photographing the old ones as they shifted from purple to green to yellow. Thursday morning changed everything. Dustin was eating cereal, quiet as he'd been since the incident, when he suddenly spoke. "Mom, Dad says you don't believe me either. He says no one will ever believe me because adults are stupid. I knelt beside his chair, taking his small hands in mine. Baby, I believe someone is hurting you. I believe you're scared. We're going to figure this out. I promise. But you don't believe it's Dad. Dustin, I was there when Daddy died. I saw him. He can't come back. This Dad is different, he said, pulling his hands away. He's meaner. His eyes are wrong. He knows things about our old house, about you, about Daddy's things. He wore Daddy's jacket, the one with the coffee stain. My blood chilled. I'd never told Dustin about the coffee stain on Roland's college jacket. It was such a specific detail, something only someone who knew Roland well would remember. That afternoon, while Dustin was reading in the living room, I drove to Tech World on Campbell Avenue. The store was mostly empty, fluorescent lights humming over aisles of electronics I didn't understand. A young employee named Trevor approached, eager to help. I need a camera for my son's room, I said. Something hidden. Someone's been getting in at night. His expression shifted to concern. Oh man, that's scary. Let me show you what we have. This model here is motion activated, sends alerts straight to your phone. Night vision, audio recording, the works. It's small enough to hide anywhere. I bought it along with a memory card and backup battery. The total came to $300 I didn't really have, but Dustin's safety was worth any price. At home, I told Dustin I was reorganizing his bookshelf while he helped Grandpa Eugene in the garage. I positioned the camera between his Captain America and Iron Man figures, angling it to capture both his bed and the window. The app connected easily to my phone, showing me a clear view of his room. Testing, I said, waving at the camera. The image was crystal clear, even picking up the titles on his book spines. That evening, I made Dustin's favorite dinner, spaghetti with meatballs and garlic bread. He barely touched it. Dustin, if Dad comes again tonight, what exactly does he do? He pushed a meatball around his plate. He comes through the window even when it's locked. He stands by my bed for a long time, just watching. Sometimes he touches my hair, but his hands are cold. He whispers about how I need to be better, stronger, more like him. He says you're making me soft. That doesn't sound like Daddy at all. Daddy loved how creative you are. I told you, this isn't the same Dad. This one is angry all the time. He smells bad, like when we forgot the milk in the car that one time. I tucked him in at 8:30, reading 2 chapters of Harry Potter until his eyes grew heavy. The camera app showed him clearly, chest rising and falling peacefully. I kissed his forehead, double-checked the window lock, and went to my room. I sat on my bed, phone plugged in and propped against a pillow, watching the feed. 9 o'clock passed quietly. At 10, Dustin rolled over, mumbling in his sleep. 11 brought nothing but the occasional car passing outside. By midnight, my eyes were burning. I made coffee, splashed cold water on my face, and returned to my vigil. 12:15 a.m. 12:30 a.m. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe whoever was doing this knew I was watching somehow. At 12:47 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. The window was opening. Not breaking, not being forced. Opening smoothly as if the lock I'd checked 3 times simply didn't exist. A figure climbed through with practiced ease, moving with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. They knew exactly where to step to avoid Dustin's scattered toys. They knew which floorboard creaked. They were wearing Roland's Boston University jacket. I sat frozen, watching this person, this intruder, move through my son's room like they belonged there. They approached Dustin's bed with slow, deliberate steps. My paralysis broke. I grabbed my phone and car keys, ready to confront whoever was terrorizing my child. I ran down the hallway, my bare feet silent on the carpet, 911 already dialing on my phone. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pressed my ear to Dustin's door. A voice filtered through, low and harsh, nothing like Roland's warm tenor, but familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. Such a disappointment. Your father wanted a strong son, not a weak little artist who cries for his mommy. I knew that voice. God help me, I knew that voice. I burst through the door, flipping the light switch in one motion. The figure spun around, and even though I'd seen her on the camera, even though some part of me had already known, the sight still knocked the breath from my lungs. Sienna Caldwell stood beside my son's bed, wearing Roland's college jacket over pajama pants and slippers. Her hair, once perfectly styled at every family gathering, hung in greasy strands around her face. Her eyes, the same hazel as Roland's, were glazed and unfocused. The smell hit me next, alcohol mixed with something sour like milk left in the sun. "Sienna?" My voice cracked. "What are you doing?" "Someone has to fix him," she said, her words slightly slurred. "Roland asked me to. He talks to me every night, tells me how disappointed he is in what you've let his son become. Too soft, too sensitive, not a real Caldwell man." 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice came from my phone. "There's an intruder in my house, 3847 East Copper Street. She's in my son's room. Please hurry." Sienna laughed, but it was hollow. Wrong. "Intruder? I'm family, Vera. I have more right to be here than you do. You weren't a Caldwell by blood. Roland was my brother. Dustin carries our family's genes, not yours." Dustin was awake now, pressed against his headboard, tears streaming down his face. "Aunt Sienna?" "Don't call her that," I said, moving between them. "Sienna, you told us you moved to California. You said you got a job in San Francisco." "I had to stay close. Roland needed me to watch over Dustin. He comes to me at night, stands at the foot of my bed just like Daddy used to when we were kids. He tells me things, secrets, like where you kept the spare key under the ceramic frog, like how Dustin's window lock never worked right because Roland broke it practicing his guitar and never fixed it." My mind raced. The ceramic frog had been at our old house in Phoenix. The broken window lock was true, but Roland had fixed it 2 weeks before he died. These were things only someone who'd been in our life for years would know. "How long have you been doing this?" 6 months. Maybe 7. Time gets fuzzy when Roland's talking. He told me about the jacket, how you gave away his things like they meant nothing. I found it at the Goodwill on Grant Road, recognized it immediately. It still smelled like his cologne. "You've been breaking into my house for 6 months? Hurting my son?" "Disciplining him," she corrected, taking a step toward Dustin. "Someone has to prepare him for the world. You're raising him to be weak, just like Roland was before our father toughened him up." I remembered Roland's stories about his father, the man who died when Roland was 15, the man who believed in discipline through fear, strength through pain. Roland had spent years in therapy dealing with that trauma, promising me he'd never be that kind of father. "Stay away from him." I moved to block her path, but she was faster than I expected, shoving me hard against the dresser. Pain shot through my shoulder as I heard sirens approaching. Sienna grabbed Dustin's arm, yanking him from the bed. "We're leaving. Roland says it's time. He's waiting for us." "Let him go." I launched myself at her, and we crashed into the bookshelf. Action figures scattered across the floor. The camera fell, landing sideways but still recording. Dustin screamed as Sienna's grip tightened on his wrist. "He says you were always too weak," Sienna hissed, her face inches from mine. "That's why he had to die, to get away from you. But I can save Dustin. I can make him strong." The bedroom door slammed open. Officers Diaz and Brennan rushed in, weapons drawn. "Police! Release the child now!" Sienna's grip loosened just enough for Dustin to wrench free and run to me. The officers moved in, Brennan pulling Sienna's arms behind her back while Diaz cuffed her. "Roland wants his son," she screamed as they led her out. "He talks to me. Every night at 3:33 a.m. he tells me what to do. You have to listen. He's coming for all of us." The psychiatric evaluation report came 3 weeks later. Sienna Caldwell diagnosed with severe delusional disorder and PTSD complicated by alcohol dependency. The death of her brother had triggered something that had probably been lurking beneath the surface for years. Dr. Martinez, the psychiatrist who evaluated her, explained it to me in terms I could understand. She created an elaborate delusion where Roland was commanding her to save his son. She genuinely believed she was hearing his voice. The alcohol lowered her inhibitions enough to act on these delusions, but the mental illness was already there. The truth was even darker than I'd imagined. Sienna hadn't moved to California. She'd been living in the Desert Palm Motel on Miracle Mile, 20 minutes from our house, surviving on a life insurance payout from a policy Roland had taken out years ago when they'd briefly run a business together. She'd forgotten to remove her as beneficiary, and she'd collected $50,000 after his death. The motel manager recognized her photo immediately. Paid in cash every week, kept to herself. Sometimes I'd hear her talking to someone in there, but she was always alone. She'd been stalking us for months before the break-ins started, following Dustin to school, watching me leave for work, learning our routines. The key to our house? She'd had it since Roland was alive, from when she'd house-sit during our anniversary trip to Sedona. We'd never thought to ask for it back after Roland died. The window lock in Dustin's room had been tampered with using a technique she'd learned from YouTube videos. She'd practiced on her motel window until she could open it silently from the outside. The police found a journal in her room, pages filled with conversations with Roland, detailed plans for reforming Dustin, making him into the son she believed Roland wanted. January 15th. Roland says Dustin draws too much. Real men don't waste time with art. Must teach him strength. March 3rd. Roland is angry. Vera lets him be soft. Must intervene soon. April 20th. Started visits. Dustin needs to understand fear makes you strong. Father taught us that. Dustin started therapy immediately with Dr. Rebecca Phelps, a specialist in childhood trauma. The first session, he barely spoke. The second, he drew pictures of shadows with familiar faces. By the fourth session, he was talking about the confusion of seeing someone he trusted become a monster. Your brain was trying to make sense of something that didn't make sense, Dr. Phelps told him during a session I was allowed to observe. You knew it was someone connected to your dad, someone who knew things about him. Your mind filled in the blanks the best way it could. So I'm not crazy? Dustin asked, his voice small. Not even a little bit. You were brave. You told the truth even when people didn't believe you. That takes incredible courage. My mother came over every day for 2 weeks, bringing food, helping with laundry, just being present. I should have believed you immediately, she said one evening, tears in her eyes. A mother knows when her child is telling the truth. I failed you both. You didn't fail us, Mom. Nobody could have imagined this. Nolan installed a complete security system, cameras covering every angle of the house, motion sensors, reinforced locks on every window. I'm so sorry, V. When you needed us to believe, we doubted. That stops now. My father built Dustin a new bed, one with built-in shelves and a reading light, replacing the one that held too many bad memories. They worked on it. Together in the garage, Dustin learning to sand wood smooth, to measure twice and cut once. You know what makes someone strong? Eugene told Dustin as they worked. It's not being tough or mean. It's protecting the people you love. It's telling the truth when you're scared. You're the strongest kid I know. 6 months have passed now. Sienna is serving 5 years in a psychiatric facility where she's finally getting help. She sends letters sometimes, apologies written in shaky handwriting as medication clears the delusions. I read the first few, then stopped. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Dustin still draws every morning, but his pictures have changed. Less shadows, more light. He drew our family last week, me, him, Grandma Diane, Uncle Nolan, and Grandpa Eugene, standing in front of our house, all of us smiling. Above us in the clouds, he drew Roland, watching over us with kind eyes, the way Dustin really remembers him. Mom, he said as I tucked him in last night, I'm not scared anymore. No? What changed? I know you'll always believe me. Even when things sound impossible, you'll believe me. That's the lesson I carry with me now. When a child tells you something that seems impossible, look closer. The monsters in their closets might be real, just wearing faces you'd never expect. Trust isn't about what makes sense. It's about believing the people you love when they need you most. The real ghosts aren't the dead who haunt us. They're the living who can't let go, who twist love into something dark and dangerous. But truth, even when it seems impossible, always finds its way into the light. And sometimes the greatest act of love is simply saying, I believe you. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you to listen when children speak their truth, please hit that like button and share this video. Your support helps these important stories reach people who need to hear them. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or your own experiences with believing the impossible. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful true stories that remind us of the strength of the human spirit. Thank you for watching, and remember, Sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the ones we most need to believe.